20,000 people there. I did have one connection. Anybody who's got gray or no hair like me remembers Dr. J, Julius Irving?
Oh, yeah.
He was a freshman there when I was. He lived in my dorm for one semester, and then he figured out he needed to be someplace else. He was a very great individual. I don't know him today, but I did have a lot of conversations with him then. I am quite connected to the community. I was off the farm for 10 years from graduation from high school through college, and I worked in a feed, seed, and fertilizer business, and then on a dairy farm. I learned to bite my tongue a lot, seeing what other people do. In some cases they were great, and others they weren't, but that's what they did. I have been school board. I am currently town moderator. I'm also a justice of the peace. As a sideline, I don't know if my kids want to cut down the cost of their weddings, but I did the ceremony for both of their weddings. When I was growing up, there were at least a dozen dairy farms in the town of Barnard. Today, there are 2 of us, our farm and Kiss the Cow. I assume several people around the crowd here know Kiss the Cow. At this point, we use the land from 6 to 7 of those farms in the town. We also are just getting everything in the culture in the community. We'll try to make it brief enough, so Matt, I want to make sure he gets the top. We have a community picnic every year for the neighbors within a 2-mile radius. We started that 50 years ago. We had 15 people. That's all the community was. Today we invite 120 people and we have 70 to 90 people. It's sort of an apology for the fragrance that occurs in the street. And the noise that my son causes when he comes back at 11 o'clock at night from mowing hay. I am sort of deeply rooted in the agricultural community, not only local, but sometimes national. I've got some nodding heads because I try to make sure there are others in the agricultural community, right, Beth, that get volunteered for positions within the... I'll just go through Vermont DHIA. That was in the past. I was president of that for 7 years until I told them you can't nominate me again for chairman, and that's the only way you can pass it on. I'm currently on the Agrimark Cabot board. I was on the Yankee Farm Credit board. I termed out, I didn't age out. I have been on the National Dairy Checkoff Board. I'm currently on the local board as vice chair. As a matter of fact, I just came back at 10:30 last night from that annual meeting in New Orleans. You talk about a cultural shock. My son expected me in the barn at 4:30 this morning, and I was. I was one of the founding members, along with Beth, and I'm not, if anybody else in the room was in that group, Connecticut River Watershed Farmers Alliance, and I didn't mention you, I apologize to begin. I'm also on the Vermont Milk Commission, that was mentioned before. I'm sort of rambling, but I did move away for 10 years, but most every weekend I was back home. There is quite a connection. We do have a kind of a close group in our high school. We just passed a major milestone of our graduation, and we looked around at each other and said, how did you survive this long? We figured we wouldn't last much more than 5 or 6 years out of high school, but there are 10 or a dozen still from my high school class that are in the area, and we still talk more than once in a while. I'm presently on a couple of organizing committees. I see people that are also on that, and I won't mention their names, but the working group for the payment for ecosystem services, and I'm also on a forming committee, I guess you'd call it, Gil, for farm and water, farmer and environmental group coalition, to try to get these 2 groups together and to agree on the things they can agree on and agree to disagree on the things they can't agree on. And in the last week, something about culture. I left at 3:30 Sunday morning to go to New Orleans. The power had come on after being off for 40 hours at 2 o'clock Sunday morning, so there wasn't a whole lot I could say about culture, except it was a cultural shock to go to New Orleans. In closing, I couldn't do the things I'm able to do, to travel and to represent agriculture, dairy especially, without my family and with the neighbors. And I'll stop there. I don't want to get teared up like these two guys.
Are you mic'd up?
No,
I think that's yours then.
So we're,
I'm Matt Angell. I'm I guess 7th generation of my family to farm our farm in Randolph, Vermont. I guess that's kind of my claim to fame, is that what's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again. So we've made it work for 200 and some odd years. Yeah, so I'm 7th generation on the farm. We milk about 125, mostly Jersey cows. We sell our milk to Agrimark, make Cabot cheese. We also do a little bit of maple sugaring, and in the last 10 or 12 years we've gotten into running a sawmill and retailing a lot of lumber out to all of our neighboring towns, and that's been kind of a nice little diversification for us. I guess me personally, I grew up on the farm. You know, it was just just my parents running the farm. Let's see, I showed cows through 4, I guess as far as culture, you know, I guess I had the culture of growing up on the farm, and the audio clips we heard about the kids playing in the sawdust cart and, you know, keeping them busy. I mean, that was me. I remember when I was 5, that was when I had my first daily chore, and that was to muck out 3 little calf pens we had in the back corner of the barn. And they bought me a miniature snow shovel, probably at the local hardware store, and gave me a sap bucket for carrying sawdust around. I think it was the right size for a 5-year-old. So I did that, and I progressed to, we did always show cows through 4-H, you know, and kind of got immersed in, and you know, the introduction to records management, to keep records under cows. And, part of the culture that I grew up in, was real active and still am in the local Grange, which is kind of a dying organization, especially in Vermont. And, but I'm lucky to be part of the most vibrant and active one left in the state. And it really is, it kind of goes back to that, probably the golden age he was talking about earlier, about between the Civil War and the World War II, of the community getting together and socializing together. And that's what this Grange, even to this day, is it's still a bunch of dairy farmers, because Randolph still has quite a few little farms, and a lot of them still belong to Grange. We all get together every couple of Fridays to have our little meeting and talk about what's going on each other's farm and kind of catch up. And yeah, I guess that's a big part of my culture. Yes, so I should probably mention I have a wonderful girlfriend who puts up with all of my crap and has for the last 8 years. She's blessed me with a almost 3-year-old daughter and a 9-month-old son, and they're already doing all those same things. I've definitely used the sawdust cart as a babysitter before, and doesn't work that bad. Shovel, and it does work. And I guess talking about what was the most noteworthy thing of the week last week, I guess, is, and I farm in partnership with my parents and my brother, and my mother is laid up right now, had foot surgery. My father works the sawmill. My brother's very laid back, and I get wound up about everything. And it was just how last year we got stuck with a full manure pit and a bunch of snow, and we couldn't spread it, and it's been something I've been trying to catch up on for the last year. And so I guess the big thing of this week was, woke up Sunday morning, the weather reports they're supposed to get 3 inches of snow this week, and it's, oh no, we've not gone through this again. And checking the pit and finding out that it wasn't liquid enough to pump anymore. So it was that my life is highly dictated by the weather, And to solve that problem, I called up VTC, and I got a hose, and I called up another neighbor, and I got a pump, and we moved some water from a holding pond, and you know, they just all called the phone, yup, sure, come get it, come do what you need, and just that sense of community of, you know, they all are in the same boat, you know, weather's here, we gotta get going, and we all made it work together, got it done. So that's what we do.
Thank you. I need a timekeeper. And the reason I need a timekeeper is what I'd like to do is give 90 seconds for answers so that we can give everyone equal opportunity to move through and ask a bunch of, get a bunch of different questions. Okay, great. So, but can you give me those 90-second cues? Can you, raise your hand or something? All right, because I can see we've got some talkers on the panel. Shona, I want to ask you, since you, and not to provoke, but I'm really interested to hear, as you think about moving out of Vermont, what aspects of Vermont culture and Vermont farming culture do you hope to take with you?
Yeah, I think a big piece is kind of what Matt was talking about, that community strength, and I think similarly, my parents were new to this area, to Royalton, when they moved here. They, my mom had some connections in Dhuarali, but they were both originally from New York State, and I think they really found those same community connections, you know, a lot of dairy farmers, other farmers in the area that lent tools